Welcome to the presentation on the rule updates to the residual solid waste and industrial solid waste programs. I am Annette de Havilland with the Ohio EPA Division of Materials and Waste Management. The slides are available for your reference at the division's website under the What's New tab announcing the presentation. And the session is recorded and will be available to attendees through Teams for 180 days. Some introductions and logistics first. I have with me Michelle Mountjoy, who is our Division Rules Coordinator, and Brian Queen from the Southeast District Office, who helped research a lot of the particulars in these rules. They will be monitoring the chat for your questions. I want to stress that I am going through the highlights of the rule changes, not every change. The big change being that the two programs were merged into a program we're calling Industrial or Manufacturing Waste, or IMW. So the IMW program is the result of merging the residual solid waste and industrial solid waste programs. These two separate programs were created as a result of the evolution of the municipal solid waste regulations. The residual solid waste program came first. It was developed to target high-volume, low-toxicity waste streams generated by 7 industries. The Industrial Solid Waste Program was created as a result of splitting the federal Subtitle D program for municipal solid waste from the remaining universe of landfills. The salient feature of the Residual Solid Waste Program was its tiered approach to regulation. The higher the concentration of contaminants in the leachate, the more robust the liner, the farther the separation from the uppermost aquifer system, and the longer the post-closure care period. The Residual Solid Waste Program had 4 tiers or classes, but in practice, the residual solid waste landfills were Class 3. For industrial waste landfills, one size fit all, which is largely equivalent to the Class 1. In merging the programs, we wanted to keep the tiered approach. IMW is industrial or manufacturing waste. You might be wondering why it's or. I didn't want anyone to interpret the rules to mean that an IMW facility must take a combination of industrial and manufacturing waste. To add the Industrial Solid Waste Program to the Residual Solid Waste Program, we added an 8th industry to encompass everything else that was not one of the 7 original RSW industries. This matters in that the parameters used to classify the residual solid waste and to monitor for groundwater contamination was tailored to a particular industry. So this 8th industry includes all the parameters since the waste could be anything. In merging the programs, we reduced the tiers to the 2 classes, but it seemed odd to refer to Class 1 and Class 3 landfills. People were going to wonder what happened to Class 2. So we renamed the tiers as industrial and residual. For those that were in the Industrial Solid Waste Program, this merging means that an industrial solid waste can now take advantage of the Class 3 or the residual landfill design. Note that the no-brainer approach for the IMW program would be to design a Class 1 or industrial landfill. But if you do want to take advantage of the residual landfill design and siting, the waste will need to be characterized and checked annually to assure the landfill is appropriate for the disposal of the material. In addition to merging the industrial and residual programs, the IMW program was also brought up to date with the municipal solid waste updates. First, we tried to keep as much of the original residual solid waste wording as possible. Then we added the industrial solid waste parts that were missing. That was mostly some design stuff. And then we edited everything to bring it up to date to what we recently adopted for the municipal solid waste landfills. What about coal combustion residuals? Coal combustion residuals are largely equivalent to what we define as the fuel burning of primarily coal industry, and we are continuing to work with the US EPA in drafting an Ohio permit program. Our approach currently is to adhere as close as possible to the federal rules while inserting Ohio siting criteria, Ohio permit process requirements, financial assurance, and keeping Ohio's groundwater monitoring program. If successful, we will be seeing a split in the IMW program to address CCR. At this point, we have not picked an effective date. It will be sometime after April 1st, so as not to upend the annual report. We don't foresee needing to reissue existing permits or licenses. Currently, we have 12 operating facilities and about 19 facilities in post-closure care. All our current facilities happen to be captive facilities, meaning only the waste generated by that company can go into the landfill. But being captive is not a requirement for IMW facilities. Before I start going through the highlights of each rule, I need to point out the role of the permit or approved plan versus rules. The permit or approved plan, as an action of the director, takes precedent over rule. So if you see something in the rule that you'd like to do, but it says otherwise in a plan, the plan will need to be altered. Design construction and the groundwater monitoring are a little different in that design and construction is assessed and updated if necessary every 10 years. And for our operating sites, the groundwater monitoring plan is reassessed upon closure. But if you don't want to wait until those events, you will need to go to the alteration route. Since the majority of facilities impacted by the update are closed facilities, I'm going to go out of order a bit here and address those changes first. That way they can log off after this first section of the presentation. So here we are with definitions. For the foundry, pulp, paper making, steel making, and gypsum definitions, the phrase wastewater treatment plant sludge was changed to water pollution control waste. This wording is consistent with the fuel burning language, and we think it is also broader. And here you see the definition of that eighth industry. And just like I said, it is everything except the 7 original residual solid waste industries. And then the rest of the definition basically defines what is a municipal solid waste, which IMW cannot be a municipal solid waste. Rule 2. This is a bunch of administrative stuff. Here we point to other chapters and rules that apply to the IMW program, such as licensing and fees. It also says that this chapter does not apply to spent non-toxic foundry sand or to fly ash or bottom ash, but the IMW facility can accept these waste streams. And this chapter does not apply to beneficial use. Groundwater monitoring. We changed the process if you stumble into an alternative source demonstration or a comparison to background. Instead of waiting for approval from the director to return to detection monitoring, it is now self-implementing. You still need to submit the same information, but now you can return to detection monitoring, and we will notify you if we disagree. We did not make return from assessment self-implementing. Post-closure care. The post-closure care period is not based on the tiered system, but whether putrescible waste was disposed. If there is putrescible waste in the landfill, the post-closure care period is 30 years. This is the same as municipal solid waste and the old industrial solid waste program. If there is no putrescible waste, then the post-closure care period is 15 years. For folks from the residual solid waste program, we changed the sequence of events for ending post-closure care slightly. It is now the same as with the municipal solid waste and the old industrial solid waste program. So after Ohio EPA has received the certification report, we'll let you know if post-closure care can cease. We also put in the ability to step down post-closure care activities into the rule. So for example, if you want to turn off the leachate collection system to see what happens with increasing head, or if leachate outbreaks might occur, we can do that. And we released a guidance document last year about ending post-closure care. So you might want to look that up. It is our goal to meet with the owner or operator in advance of the end of post-closure care to discuss if there are any issues which might keep the facility from being able to end when they thought they were. Other new requirements are a measurable standard for what is dense vegetative cover, maintaining a closed sign for 2 years, and we listed out the leachate management system obligations. You can see the short list there. And for the annual report, we ask for a summary of the conditions of the various systems. Financial assurance, they are not in Chapter 30, they're still in Chapter 27. Edits here were basically to catch up to the migration of the transfer facility program to their new home and to delete sites to Chapter 29. So basically cosmetic stuff. So that should cover the updates for the closed facilities, which are also applicable to operating facilities once they get to that point. And at this time, I will pause and take any questions on the material covered so far.